So some patrons wrote us, Berto, and asked us to talk about Pokemon Go.
Oh.
And since we always oblige the patrons of the podcast, let's Pokemon Go.
Let's go.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a professor and a licensed therapist.
My name is Humberto Castañeda. I collect rare Japanese creatures.
So Pokemon Go, it's about 1 month of the age of Pokemon Go. There has been lots of media coverage, and so I thought, let's talk about it.
What a phenomenon, huh?
Yeah. Do you play it?
No.
Okay.
I never got into Pokemon.
Well, it's me neither. I mean, I knew of Pokemon because of my nieces and younger people, and I had clients who were kids, and they were super into Pokemon. And I knew of the games, mainly the different Game Boy games, like Sapphire.
And Red and Blue.
Yeah. and
I knew about it as well, but I probably watched one cartoon one time.
Actually, that I watched a lot because there was a time when I didn't. For most of my life, I've never had cable. I just don't want to waste my time on TV, and so. But sometimes when you're eating a sandwich for lunch, you just want to sit in front of the TV and watch something.
That's right.
And so one of the only things on in the afternoon
was Pokemon.
and incidentally Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, okay.
And so I watched a fair amount of Pokemon. And
I didn't know that Yu-Gi-Oh was also a TV show. I knew it was a card game, but I didn't know.
Right. So Pokemon's also a card game.
Right.
And I always felt, some kinship with it since it's Japanese.
Sure.
Pocket Monster.
Right.
I don't know if everyone knows that, but that's what Pokemon means.
Well, my recent favorite game on iPhone is Pocket Morty's.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Rick and Morty game.
Oh, is it a real game?
Yeah, it's a real game where you collect different dimensional Mortys and you battle them against each other.
Is it augmented reality?
No.
Oh.
That's why I play it.
So it's released July 5th, which is just over a month ago. And like 6 days later, on July 11th, I'd been hearing things. I'd seen it on Reddit. I'd seen pictures on Reddit of people posting stuff, and I was like, "What's going on?" There's some sort of Pokemon game that's happening right now. And normally I'm not a sucker for that kind of stuff. So, but something happened on that night on 7-Eleven, and I downloaded it, and me and a bunch of other people just started playing it. And instantly, I loved it. Yeah, we were all, wandering around the neighborhood that night, trying to get Pokemon, and it was really fun. And me and everyone around me became super obsessed with it. I got my parents into it. My grandma died recently.
Oh yes.
And we all went to Spokane because that's where she lived, and she was 101, so. It's not like it was a tragedy.
She lived a long, great life.
Right. And my family knows each other pretty well. And so when we get together, it's kind of like a party. Mm-hmm. So even though it was a funeral memorial, and there were some somber moments for sure, most of the time it was like a big party for all of us family members. And Pokemon played a big part of that.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, she would have liked to know that the family was having fun together.
Yeah. So let's talk about the psychology, but first, let's talk about the safety issues. I can absolutely see myself walking into traffic or off of a cliff or something. When I first started playing this game, I mean, there are times when I'm staring at my phone too much anyway, but when you're playing Pokemon, I mean, it really grabs your attention. And a lot of the Pokemon are in the world,
right
next to the street. Right. I'll be walking down the sidewalk with cars whizzing by, and I'm just staring at my phone. I could easily just see myself turning right into traffic. Right. And so along those lines, what have you heard stories of people?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing was it came out while I was just leaving or while I was in Colombia. Meaning, I was going on my trip or I was already on my trip.
Side note about Colombia, did you read the new news about this?
Yes, the FARC peace agreement.
But I heard that other such things have happened in the past, and so we're skeptical of it until it actually proves.
Well, there's never been this particular agreement. What they've done is they've done peace treaties with the right-wing militias and other smaller insurgent groups, but this one was by far the largest. And the problems is that they have had like, for example, when they made the peace treaties with the right-wing militias, those people were, thugs that knew nothing but how to be criminals. So they formed new criminal syndicates. However, and I was just reading this morning, the violence is at a record low. Even after that, and even after those. So it's like you trade some bads for other bads, but in this case, it might be for the best.
Huh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy for you. It's been, 52 years of war?
Yeah.
And, hundreds of thousands of people dead.
Yep.
And pointless ridiculousness.
It wasn't pointless when they started the movement because it was, legitimate, like an atrocity of a layered system of oppression. But
anti-fascist, like a populist
it was a populist rising. But then it got, as most things that can get into contact with money, it got very corrupted by the influence of the drug money.
Yeah. I heard a similar thing. Did you see that Ukrainian documentary about?
No.
Well, you've heard of it, right? I think it won an Oscar. It's where the populist uprising overthrew the government. This was just like 4 or 5 years ago.
I didn't see that. What was that called?
What's it called? I can't remember. But
I want to see that.
But it's amazing. Many people died. And I know a Ukrainian guy, and I was like talking. I was like, man, I saw this amazing documentary. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, so what's the story? And he's like, well, even though it was a wonderful thing that the popular, the people struck back at this very unfair president and got him and overthrew him, immediately some other crook took over.
Yeah.
So it's just like terrible. Anyway, getting back to Pokemon Go. So what were you saying?
I was going to say that one of the big concerns that I was hearing about was people stalking other players to rob them because they knew, okay, we know the general area where some of these things are going to spawn. So, okay, let's just wait. People are going to show up.
Yeah.
We can rob them.
Yeah.
And that happened apparently quite a bit.
Right. Right.
In
so,
some areas. Anyways.
Yeah. So, yeah. And you can lure people to particular areas. That's one thing. If there's literal lures that you can place, and then people come running, and then you can rob them. Yeah. Also, 2 drunk young men fell off a cliff, apparently. Another one, which isn't really a safety issue, is a dude found an unconscious woman in a car. She was drunk driving and passed out, and then he called the cops, and they came and helped her. That happened to me once, actually. I was on a walk near Green Lake in Wallingford, and I walk by this car, and it's parked, on the street, parallel parked, but just really terribly. Like half the car is like sticking out into the road. And I look in the car, and there's a woman completely passed out.
Oh my God.
And if she was parked normally, I would have been like, well, she's parked.
Taking a nap.
Big deal. But it didn't look right, and so I remember. So I wasn't playing Pokemon Go back then, but people are playing while driving and crashing their cars. I can absolutely see that too.
God.
I have to admit, I've played Pokemon while I was driving.
That's horrible.
When I was really obsessed with it the first few days or something, you just can't stop. You just have to. Anyway, I don't do it anymore.
But by the way, the main reason I haven't played it isn't actually because I didn't play or didn't watch Pokemon or whatever. Yeah. Although that because I hadn't, that hasn't been a lure for me. But I'm just too lazy. I'm too lazy. I don't want to walk when I'm playing a video game.
Right. Yeah, you can't play at home, or you can, but it's very hard unless you live right next to some.
That's why I like Pocket Mortys, because I can play it anywhere.
Let's see. A girl walked into traffic and got hit by a car, and of course, she is trying to sue Pokemon for that.
Yikes.
People are trespassing on people's private property, which I can absolutely see, because there are things that are set up, or say a Pokemon that you need is on someone's lawn. You got to go over there and get it.
Right.
And when you want something, it's a powerful pull. So I can absolutely see people. But the thing is to me, there are 10 million people playing this game in the United States. 10 million. 10 million people in the United States, and getting more all the time. If just 0.001% of them do something untoward, then you're going to have stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's like saying, Well,
you can grab any population of that size and find a lot of bad stuff.
Right. I'm sure, if you get 10 million knitters together, there's going to be groups of knitters that are like, shanking you for extra yarn or something. It's just like 10 million people, shit's going to happen, Anyway, and these 10 million people on average playing an hour a day. They're not just playing for like 5 minutes. 10 million people an hour a day. Okay, wow. So let's get into psychology. But first, let's hear a message from our sponsors, will we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we're back. So let's talk about the psychology of Pokemon Go. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
So what's the obvious psychology concept occurring with Pokemon Go that we could comment on?
Addiction.
Right. And what else could you say about that?
Obsessive compulsive behavior.
What brain process is occurring?
Reward, the maybe dopamine or
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Reward system in the brain, the dopamine system. You get a biological rush every time. See, for those of you that know Pokemon, you know that rush. You know that fucking feeling you get when you get that Pokemon. If you've never played before, you'll be walking around and you're like waiting to find a Pokemon. They're hiding in different bushes and stuff. And so you don't know when you're going to come across one. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's a Pokemon. And you have limited time to go get it and capture it. And sometimes they get away. You can't capture it. And so if you actually, and once it's yours forever. You own that Pokemon. It's yours.
How do you capture? Do you have to fight it against another one or something?
No, that's the real way. But they changed it for this game. You throw a ball at it and try to like capture it. You have to hit it, and then sometimes they can escape. But anyway, so when you get that, it's a biological rush. It's similar to sex. It's similar to drugs. It's similar to gambling, like a piece of chocolate or jumping off a diving board.
Well, because in sex, you have to throw balls at things too.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And, there's pocket monsters in sex. When you level up, that's pure conditioning. So you level up very quickly. Just like every game, video game people know conditioning. They know the reward system.
Diablo.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know that when they were first prototyping Diablo, I'm talking about Diablo 1 back in like the 90s, when they were prototyping it, the core thing that they were proving was simply that reward cycle. So they essentially had a little demo that you would just click to get points, and then every end it would ding a level or give you something else, and that alone seemed rewarding and fun. Right. And it's been exemplified by things like what was that cow game? Remember the cow game that some dude put out?
But the cookie. Did you ever play the cookie game?
Yes, I did. And then there was one that was about cows, about tipping or not tipping, touching cows. And the reason he made that game was an answer to Farmville, basically. But he made it dead simple. All you had to do was touch the cows.
And you got stuff.
And you got cows. It was like you touch the cows, you get cows.
You get more cows.
Like yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah. Right. It's pure conditioning. And one of the best reward schedules you can have to reinforce the behavior is one, randomness. So if you don't know when a reward is, I'm trying to remember all my classic conditioning, learning behavior literature. So I might be screwing some things up, but there are two different kinds of reward schedules. One is if it's random and spaced out enough, it'll increase the motivation for the behavior. Because if you know when a reward is going to happen, you tend to say, well, I'm just going to wait for 10 minutes because eventually the reward's going to happen. But if you never know when it's going to happen, so Pokemon has that hands down. You're walking along, you have no idea what's going to happen. The other thing is with leveling up, when you level up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's very quick. Right. You can level up in a night to 5. But leveling up, I know someone who's trying to level up from 22 to 23, and it's taking her like weeks.
Yeah.
And so
it's the World of Warcraft ramp that do you remember how as they would add levels, the last 10 levels they would always add, they would do things to speed up all the previous levels.
Oh, really?
So they would release like, 4x point multipliers this weekend.
Yeah.
Because it would get exponentially harder at the top.
Right.
But if they made it always like that at the bottom, then no one would ever reach the top of the new players.
Right.
So they wanted to incentivize the new players.
Right, exactly. So, and it has that system. And so, there's just, and they have a lot of different little things in the game along those lines, not just levels, not just Pokemon, but they have like gyms and eggs, and like you can hatch eggs if you walk around. Anyway, so that's one thing we say is dopamine reward system. The other thing we can say, what's another element of this game that you think makes it popular besides dopamine reward system?
Well, there is definitely nostalgia for a large chunk of the Pokemon population because maybe not you, maybe not me, but there are a lot of people. Pokemon is a very famous, very successful franchise for 20 years.
There are some people that this is like half of their life.
Yeah, it's like if Star Wars had come out with something in AR for us.
Yeah. And if you're not in that world, then you don't know. But I know people who Pokemon, that's the only game they played from the age of 8 until 18.
Right.
And they just couldn't wait for the next Game Boy Pokemon to come out. And that's all that they played. So yeah, nostalgia, a big thing. What's another reason do you think that people play this game?
I actually think a sense of community because I've seen how, and this happens with a lot of phenomenons like that, where all of a sudden you feel like, oh, you're doing it too? Oh my God, now I'm part of a thing.
Right.
And then you see the videos of like the swarms of people and you're like, I'm doing that too.
Right. So if I was the only one I knew playing this game, like I would have stopped playing. Yeah. But when I'm in Spokane, I'm with my mom, my cousins, I'm with all my family, and we're running around because the big event was in Seattle. There was no Pikachus. Or at least it was seemingly no Pikachu is
he's the mascot, the main one.
The main one. And when we were in Spokane, there were rumors of Pikachus, and my nephew said, "I got a Pikachu," and like all of us just start freaking out, And so where are we gonna get the Pikachu? And so when we got one, it was like this big deal. And so definitely like playing it together is a big deal. What's another factor that you think?
Okay, the collection aspect of it.
Okay.
People like collecting, different things. And in this case, many games take advantage of that. For example, I love the Batman games that have come out in the last few years. And even though your main quest is to go get the Joker, go do this and that, all along you are finding little things that are hidden and strewn about. And then you have this little like trophy case with all the little posters you found and all the secrets you found. And there's something addicting about, I have 3 holes still. I can't finish the game until I get,
Yeah. The first time I played that I got that sense was during the 1980 Olympics with McDonald's.
Oh yeah, and they had the little stickers or whatever.
Well, it was Monopoly.
Oh, Monopoly.
So like you could get like Park Place and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And my family was just obsessed with that. It was like, probably every Olympics, McDonald's does some version of that.
Sure.
But for some reason in 1980, it was like a really popular game because I think it was like peak McDonald's. Because right now, like McDonald's, it has like a mixed reputation.
Yeah.
In 1980, I think it had a like just 100% positive reputation at the time. Anyway,
if you were a kid in 1980, and a parent said, "All right, where do you want to go for breakfast this Saturday? Or where do you want to go right now?" If you want, it's like McDonald's. I want the hotcakes with or I want a Happy Meal, or I want whatever.
Yeah, I think my 5th birthday party at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, and that's right. They had all those. So I was gonna say actually
no playroom, just at one of the booths.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because the playrooms this is 1976.
Oh, so it's before the
playrooms.
The play boom. So I was gonna say the motto of Pokemon was you gotta catch them all.
Right.
So that was built into the
Right.
into the story there.
Right. So I have some other things. You mentioned being outside. I think that actually makes it much more appealing to me because one, it's summertime, you're outside, it's fun. I wonder how this game's going to play like when it starts getting nasty outside, you know?
Well, sorry, if for the gamer in me, that's kind of neat because especially if I lived in a snowy area, because then you're like Han Solo out in Hoth looking for stuff, you know?
Also, it makes it special to play. So if you could just play at home, then I would imagine getting bored with it really quick.
Sure.
But since you actually have to make a special trip, like the amount of time I've spent actually playing the game is actually pretty minimal because I need actual time to like go out, you know, and you have to go to places where they're Pokemon. Like outside where I live right now, there's not a lot of Pokemon in this neighborhood. You got to go to like Green Lake or something.
I see.
And my God, Green Lake, you know,
It's packed.
Pokemon are packed. Yeah.
Interesting.
It also makes it feel more real because of the augmented reality. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's not just a video game on your phone. It feels like you're interacting, and there's these
Sure.
different like posts and stuff that you can go to and get stuff from. And I don't know, it just feels like you're in a real world game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to other AR stuff coming out.
Imagine how it would feel if you were wearing AR glasses and you were doing it.
And just running around.
Because you know, with the phone, you still know that if you hold the phone down, you don't see it.
Right.
But then when you're wearing the glasses, if they're good enough future glasses in say 3 years or something,
Yeah.
then you're actually like, oh my God, it's like the suspension of disbelief is constant.
I know. Yeah, totally. I think the design of the game is actually another huge appeal because it is extremely simple. Mm-hmm. The game is extremely simple, elegant, and fun. It's very simple. Like, to me, one of the biggest problems with video games today, like on Xbox and stuff, is just how fucking complicated these things are. It's like, I don't have time to like learn an entire system of technology, essentially.
Right.
I just want to sit down and play a game for a half an hour and then go to bed. I don't want to have to go online and learn how to like, okay, when you like Fallout 4, the whole, you know, it's crazy. Yeah. Bright colors. It has a slight mystery to it. It's very easy to play. Like I said, when I got my mom on it, she instantly could figure out how to play it. You know, it's extremely easy.
My understanding is that there's also like a map mode where it shows you a map,
Yeah.
and then it's not really the world. It's like this alternate kind of reality sort of thing.
No, it's basically a map of the world. You know,
okay.
it has streets and
But it's like drawn.
It looks cartoonish.
Cartoonish.
Yeah. Okay. Also, it's a distraction. You know, life sucks sometimes, and Pokemon Go provides a distraction, an innocent distraction.
It's interesting that to me the IP is a lot of it. Although everything you've mentioned absolutely contributes to it, because that same company they came from Google and they were
IP?
Google intellectual property.
Oh.
That they started at
Right,
Google.
well, because there's another game that came just before it
Ingress.
that was very similar, but hardly anyone played
Are you
it.
talking about Ingress?
Yeah.
That was from that same team.
Yeah.
That's what they did while they were at Google. And, you know, they basically had this really cool tech and a cool idea, but, you know, it had a loyal but small following because it wasn't about a known topic.
And it was adult themed, right? It was more like wasn't it like spies and this kind of stuff?
Yeah, but it was sci-fi-ish, but yeah. But it certainly wasn't like here's if you're going to do something in an innovative tech field, you should pair it with something known as far as, because you could do that spy game or whatever in a more traditional game format and then maybe not have the same barrier to entry.
Well, I don't know, but perhaps the narrative is, well, we got all the bugs out with Ingress,
Sure,
and then when we got the IP of Pokemon, we already knew how to get this thing going.
That's right.
And okay, so there's a backlash. There's a lot of haters, lots of haters, lots of Pokemon Go haters. Just go on the internet. I don't get it. I don't understand why people have to I've experienced haters in my personal life, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be like playing Pokemon Go, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just this instant, you know, if you don't want to play it, fine. You know, there are all sorts of things I don't like to do that other people do.
Right.
But I don't have to fucking voice it that I don't like it and I think you're stupid for doing it.
I kind of feel like I've seen 3 buckets of haters. There's probably more, but I've seen 3. One of them is what you're describing, which is not uncommon, where it's the basically like kids these days, get off my lawn syndrome, that kind of thing.
Right.
The second one is people that actually liked it or were playing it, but are very, very fanatical. And then when they changed some aspects, they rebelled and like, oh, they ruined the game. They broke the mechanic. And that was because they changed, I guess that you could, since I haven't played, I don't know all the details, but I guess at first you could do a thing where it would tell you if you were near to a Pokemon or something like that.
Yeah.
And then at some point they
got rid of that.
Well, because they were able to make third-party apps that could show you the locations of the Pokemon. So then they turned off that feature, and then people got super pissed because of that. So there was that bucket. And then the third bucket was people that I heard were angry because the service would go down a lot and things like that.
Yeah, well, essentially, they didn't know that 10 million people are going to be playing this, and so it had a lot of lags in the beginning. Yeah, right. So I don't understand why people have to poop on someone else's parade. You know, I don't go around talking about how much I hate people who like to watch soccer or something. You know what I mean? It's like if you like to watch soccer, then great. You know, there's all sorts of, like I said, there's all sorts of things that other people do. Like the majority of things that humans do, I don't do. So
I hate people that go around pooping on other people's things that they love and they don't hate.
Yeah. You know, like if someone's wearing polka dots, I don't like wearing polka dots, but do I go around the street just go, people who wear polka dots are stupid? You know, I don't know. I mean, I understand if it's impacting your life somehow, you know, like a Pokemon Go player like runs you over in their car. Like I get it, but sort of that, you know, I say shut up. Basically, why do you think they're like that? Why do you think they're parade poopers? Why do they do that?
Well, I think, okay, so for example, when something gets very, very popular with maybe an audience that you're not a part of, like Titanic. Titanic is a movie that I enjoyed, but once it started becoming such a ridiculous phenomenon with the teenage girls, once it started becoming such a is that a word?
It is now.
Once it started becoming such an amazing or ridiculous phenomenon with the girls from a certain age to a certain age, and that they would stand in line and see it like 8 times and things like that, I think a lot of us young males started getting resentful towards that franchise, even though I enjoyed it when I saw it. Then I remember the conversation with me and my friends was like, freaking Titanic. Yeah. Oh, and I even started saying, I don't know how much I did, but I know those around me definitely like, oh, Leo DiCaprio sucks, man. Yeah. Even though I actually liked his performance, I liked him as an actor then and before and after. So I think that tends to happen because we were not that audience. We were not those young girls going to see it over and over.
Yeah.
So maybe you feel left out.
Yeah.
Know?
I think it's based on insecurity. I think when you are insecure, it will manifest in all sorts of ways, including this. I think the more secure you are, the more you live and let live. The more you're just like, yeah, okay, if you know, I don't know, I'm not into it. You're super into it. I'm glad you're into it. In fact, the more secure you are, the more happy you are with other people's happiness. Right. And if Pokemon Go is giving other people happiness, then you feel happy for those people.
Yeah, I think that was part of it with Titanic is because, you know, again, us young guys, we're looking around, we're like, wait, why are you obsessing over Leonardo? Why don't you obsess over me?
Yeah. Also, I think there's sort of like a game theory element in that if you have a choice, you can either love something or hate something. And if you love it, then the people who hate it are going to think you're stupid. And the people who love it are just going to think, well, yeah, you love it.
I see.
But if you hate it, then the other people who hate it will think, yeah, you're one of the smart people. And the people who love it will just be hurt by you.
Okay, so that works a lot with bands, for example, because, you know, there are bands where you're like, oh, I went and saw the Smashing Pumpkins, and it's like, I saw them when they were unknown.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time. When I was in high school, whenever I think about this phenomenon, I think about this moment in high school when I was at my senior party. You know how you have like a senior party, and we were on this island in the Puget Sound.
Nice.
And it was up all night, and we had dancing music, and you and I love Depeche Mode.
Oh yeah,
we love Depeche Mode. Like it's one of our favorite bands of all time.
Yeah,
particularly in the '80s when they were still making albums.
Climax.
And Depeche Mode came on, and I turned to my friends and I said, "DM, let's dance."
Yeah.
And this girl, this like early proto hipster, whom I like, but she's a proto hipster, just looks at my face and goes, "DM." And I just thought, like, why would you poop on my parade? I did nothing to you. I wasn't even talking to you. Depeche Mode came on. I turned to my friends. I said, "DM, let's go dance." And then she fucking snarls in my face. And I just thought, like, why would you do that? Like, what is the impulse there to poop on someone else's parade? So anyway.
No, but you're right. Because, so one of the things is when something explodes very fast, and you feel like you're in the minority, then what you were saying is a factor, because if I feel like I can band with others that haven't seen or don't like or whatever, and then we can together say, yeah, that's a pointless endeavor, then we have a sense of community, even though we don't have to participate in the thing that's going on, in the phenomena.
Right.
This happens when, for example, a big movie comes out and you haven't seen it, and everyone you know and their mothers are seeing it, but you and a few others get online and you're like, I'm sure it's stupid. Those previews look stupid. I hate it anyways. And now I hate anyone who likes it. And
right. I know. Sometimes I like to think what would happen if a movie like, say, Batman v Superman, if that was an indie film that came out of like Korea that no one saw. It would be huge with the nerds. The nerds would just be completely freaking out about it.
I think so.
Like if you could only get your hands on like a import DVD or something, I guarantee you they would love it, because there are movies like that, for instance, from Korea that are really unknown that I think are average movies at best, but they are beloved in a certain group of people. But because it's a big blockbuster and it has tons of marketing, and
it has two very tricky characters because they're so beloved, so well known, blah 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 blah. Right.
Well, but I say even with that, even if it was anyway. So, but the bottom line is that we're looking at why this is popular. But the bottom line is it's impossible to know why this game is so popular. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense. Every day, tens of games are being released.
Well,
with very similar mechanics. Yeah. And people say, "Oh, it's AR." It's like, well, there's been other AR games, and in fact, AR is actually a lot of, including me, will turn off the AR because it's harder to play with the AR.
That's what I was reading. That's why I was asking about the map. But maybe that's what I was reading, is that people prefer the map sometimes because it's easier.
Right. And so it's really just impossible to know why it's so popular.
I think that we've identified reasons why it did well, but the question of the magnitude of how well it did, that's where it's a magic.
Yeah.
It's like, I think if you planned the same thing twice,
right,
one of those times it's not going to do as well.
Oh yeah. I guarantee you there are, tens of thousands, this, of dudes sitting around trying to make the next Pokemon Go.
That's right.
For the next 10 years, people are going to be like...
It's been funded immediately. Yeah. That's what I said. The first week it was happening, I'm like, oh, they have funded just now. This week they funded like 100 projects that were not going to get funded.
Right. So, you just never know. So I'll conclude by saying, as with all new reward systems, eventually they start to lose their luster. And with Pokemon Go, I had an increase of, I needed more Pokemon. I needed more powerful Pokemon. I needed to do the gyms. I need to hatch some eggs. I was, it's like trying to get your fix. The first time I got one Pokemon, I was freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need 10 Pokemon. Then you need 100. And then I went to Green Lake where Pokemon were, in fact, there's this one spot, and for those of you who know the game, understand this, there's one spot where there are 3 Pokemon stops. And if you sit in this one spot, you have access to all 3 of those stops, meaning that every minute or so you can get stuff from those 3 spots. And you don't even have to move. You can just sit there. And you're at the lake. You're at a nice, spot.
So you can mine there.
Right,
day.
yeah, you just sit there. And since there are so many people there, a lot of people altruistically will drop lures on all 3 of those stops. And so there are just herds of Pokemon coming to that spot, and you don't even have to move. And so I was just in heaven. I was just like, as soon as I got one Pokemon, there were 3 more Pokemon I could choose from. And I said, oh, I don't have that one yet. And I was just like Pokemon after Pokemon. And then after that, it was like the game sort of lost its luster because when I'm walking around this neighborhood and like one Pokemon will show up, like, well, if I went to Green Lake right now, I'd just be drowning in Pokemon. And so eventually, the game starts to lose its luster a little bit. I still play it, but not nearly the way I did before.
That's what happens with things like, Grand Theft Auto when you turn on all the cheat codes.
Yeah.
It's so fun for like, I don't know, maybe half an hour. Because you turn on the tank and you get the FBI going, you get the military after you. And for about a half hour, you're sitting there just laying waste to everything. You're like, oh, this is so great. But then after that half hour, you're like, well, I've kind of seen everything there was to see.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
That's why I don't like cheat modes, because of that. It ruins it. It's like it takes away all the tension.
And this is an existential question that imagine if you were a super being like Superman, but even more so where you could, let's say you could instantly teleport anywhere within a few light years and you were impervious to heat, weather, bacteria, everything. At that point, what becomes interesting is an interesting question.
Well, they tried to ask that question in Watchmen with the blue guy, and I thought that it was an interesting answer that they had. Well, that does it for another episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us. Please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.
Yeah.